anyway, I hope that you're on your way to school or on your way to work or about to fall asleep or doing the dishes, mopping the floor, whatever. I don't want to waste your time. So listen, the thing is that a little bit about me. When I first came to China, I came with a scholarship, right? And then I went to a university in Nanjing, which offers the preparatory courses to get enrolled in your undergraduate program, which is taught in Chinese. So I don't know, man, but it really felt like going back to high school for me, because more specifically a boarding school. I've never been to a boarding school. I was in a regular school, but I imagine this is what going to a boarding school feels like, because I don't know, the way the teachers would treat us and the way we were being treated, it really felt as if we were just high schoolers in a boarding school. And like, for example, if you would have to go to class, right, and then if you would not go to class, then some of the teachers there would actually contact the cleaning lady or the cleaning person or property managers from your dorms and have them go knock on your door. But that never happened to me specifically. I'm not saying I never skipped classes, but I never like had anyone knocking on my door asking about my whereabouts, right? But I don't know, I guess there was just the teachers concerned about you, but at the same time they just didn't want anyone skipping classes, especially because I think there were lots of high expectations of our batch, because there were like 200 students from different parts of the world. And I know that later I learned that the China Scholarship Council, CSC, they would actually send inspectors to check attendance and all that, and they wanted to be very transparent about it. But I think that sometimes you cannot control what the students are going to do. Some students would not go to class for weeks or whatever, and I guess the teachers, they were more than concerned about you, they were concerned about how you might make them look like in front of their leader, because that's about it. That's what I later learned in China, right? Because I think in China it's really important to go to class. Like, it's really, really important, and I know it makes sense, right? You have to go to class so you can learn, but I think it's a little bit different, because I know that in other universities in other parts of the world, like, it doesn't really matter if you go to class or not. In my country, I had a teacher that would tell students, like, man, if you can pass the class without actually attending it, then go for it. I don't want to waste your time, right? But I guess that in China, there's such the role of a teacher is so important, right? Since Confucian times, the greatest masters, Lu Xun and Confucius, Mao Tzu, Lao Tzu, all these thinkers and educators, they played a big role. And man, like, this is just another proof that the relationship between the student and the teacher in China is not reciprocal, right? It's not a two-way street when it comes to respect, because I think I have to talk about this in a separate episode, but what I'm trying to say here is that there's no way that a student can, in the mind of the many Chinese, like, a student should not be able to wing the exams or pass the classes without the teacher's help, right? And I think that is because you would make the teacher's position redundant. You would make it seem as if the teacher is not really necessary, right? And I guess this is not a nice feeling, right? That students can get away with like skipping classes and still like being able to pass the classes, right? And this is precisely what happened in my department, because what happened is that my major was Chinese language with a concentration in business, right? And man, I don't know if this is a rumor, but I remember hearing a friend saying that our department would not take attendance, right? Like, teachers would not take attendance. It was not mandatory. But then one day, the dean of the department went to attend one of her classes, to monitor one of her classes, right? And man, can you believe that not a single student showed up that day? And I guess, like, in the mind of this guy, he was like, how dare you, like, why not to attend classes in our at our prestigious university, right? Prestigious institution here. I don't know, man. Like, and after that point on, then our department started taking. I mean, teachers in our department were asked to take attendance, and it became part of your grade, man. And it's crazy because literally, well, I don't know who was the one who said this. I don't even remember. Was it like Woody Allen? I don't remember, but it was someone who said, like, 90% of success is just showing up. Well, man, in China, it's pretty obvious. It's like 30% of your grade. It's just showing up. And man, I don't know. I think that for the teachers is mostly about respect. Like, not showing up to classes is disrespectful, because like, what else do you have to do, right? Like, this is the mentality again. That how students are not respected in China, because what else do you have to do, right? Like, what else are you gonna be doing? Like, literally all you're gonna be doing is study. And teachers do not understand that sometimes shit can happen to you when you are a foreign student, right? And this is why it's so important. I think it's so important for teachers, especially teachers who teach foreigners, to have experience studying abroad, because I think that many of the problems that the Lawais have here in China as students are teachers cannot understand it, right? The teachers that have never had the opportunity to study abroad and be alone abroad and have to rely on yourself, they probably never experienced that, so they probably cannot have any empathy towards you, right? And imagine that the reason why you're skipping classes is just out of laziness, right? But not all. I think that many teachers are very understandable when it comes to like you skipping ones. But I think that, like, for example, one of the things that I've noticed about the Asian students in particular is that they're just like, oh, 老师身体不舒服, like, 我要请假, 我要病假. And I was like, man, like, some of these students, they would like make sure to tell the teacher in advance, but what they didn't know is that you can only 病假, I think it's like twice per semester, right? Or like 3 times per semester. And after that, it doesn't really matter why you 病假 or 事假. It doesn't matter. It's just gonna affect your grade anyway. You're gonna be absent, right? But I think it's about letting the teacher know in advance, because man, like, honestly, man, if you're missing classes in many universities, I don't think the teacher cares, because he has to deal with some other stuff or whatever. But in China, I guess, like, they want to know why you didn't come to class, right? Because I don't know, man, I've been thinking a lot, and after talking to some teachers, especially very young Chinese teachers, the feedback that I've gotten from them is that sometimes they feel a little bit insecure when they finally open up, and that Chinese are not particularly known for openly showing their vulnerabilities, and but the very few that have actually opened up about how they feel about students skipping classes, they have all coincide in one thing, which is, man, like, it makes me feel a little bit insecure when students start missing classes, because I'm wondering whether I am being boring or whether my classes suck. And also another type of concern that I've heard is I'm scared that how this is gonna make me look in front of the head teacher or in front of my boss, in front of my leader. So I guess I get it. I get why is it that they get very, I don't know, some teachers get very concerned when you're skipping classes and all that. And I think that's because it's mostly about how you make them look like and how you make them feel. And man, I feel like some teachers are just the epitome of, what do you call it, like, man, deplorable and also exemplary human behavior. Because, man, I've had the best but also the worst teachers. I think I have a few dishonorable mentions here, and I remember, well, there's a huge difference between the young teachers and the old teachers. But before I begin talking about that, man, I know that the teachers are very concerned sometimes about how the student performance is going to make them look like. For example, I remember that during my preparatory courses, the teachers were constantly reminding us how, man, if you don't pass the CSE test, the Chinese Scholarship Council exam, then you're going to have to Huiko, and Huiko was the biggest threat, man. And I know that teachers knew that would strike a chord with many students, especially if you came from a third world country with zero academic prospects or zero professional prospects, right? And man, I don't know, like, I guess they were just using the fear of disappointing our families or parents to motivate you, which is not the best way to motivate a student, I think. But man, they would constantly mention the exam and this, China Scholarship Council exam, which was very difficult, and you failed it, and you would have to go back home. And I don't know, I remember the exam had like 2,000 words, and they were told that the exam was going to have 2,000 words. And for a long time, that's what people believed, right? Like, they were like, yeah, man, it's 2,000 words and we're all good, man. It's been like 7 months. It was all good. I had already passed HSK4 and 5 a month later. But man, what really, it got really bad. Like, something happened. I don't know if there was some sort of miscommunication between our department and CSE, because all of a sudden, like 2 weeks before the actual exam, the teachers told us, well, man, you know how we told you that the exam was going to include 2,000 Chinese words, right? Well, no, it's not like that. It's going to include 5,000 words, and we screwed up because we only taught you 2,000 words. And now we're very concerned because we're scared that you guys are going to perform really, really bad. And man, they were, like, they just openly told us, man, if you do not understand the question, just come and ask us, and then we'll give you the answer. And man, that's exactly what happened. They were just like, man, if the inspector walks in the classroom, then do not ask any questions. And then everybody understood, except for this one guy from Congo, man. This guy was all lost. There's always that one classmate, that is just totally lost, and they never understand anything that's happening in the class. And man, this guy, first of all, he arrived 2 months late to the preparatory courses for some reason, but whatever. He couldn't speak any English or Chinese. And man, I would talk to him, in my very vulgar French. But man, apparently you cannot just imagine that you speak French and actually speak French. So yeah, like, it was really hard to communicate with the guy. But anyway, the guy, I don't know, man, like, he couldn't get the right message. And I remember we had to have it in our phones, right? And then they'll put all the cell phones inside this basket, right, during exams. And I know that, man, this guy, when the exam began, and we were 5 minutes into the exam, and man, like, something happened. Like, the teacher started freaking out, and I was like, what's going on? And they just approached this guy from Congo, and they were asking him, like, man, give the phone. And he was like, I gave my phone. I gave it. And they were like, man, we just saw your message. And man, can you believe what the guy did? He took a picture of the front page of the test, and instead of sending it to man, this is what you should change. Man, the names of the group chats on WeChat must have different names. The ones that include the teachers and the students, and the ones for the students must have totally different, unrelated names. Like, I don't know, call it something else. Like, I don't know, dumplings, Snickers, shoes, whatever thing you want to call it. Because in that way, you're not going to get confused. This guy literally just sent the front page of the exam with an extra phone that he had carried that day, and sent it to the group chat that included the teachers. And man, when we realized what was happening, man, everyone was like shitting on him and like asking him, like, to hand in the phone and just like stop being stupid. And he refused. To this day, he hasn't returned his phone, man, and has not admitted that he actually took photo. Man, well, nothing else happened. I think most of the teachers in the group chat just pretended that they never saw that picture, because they were asking the guy to recall the message, and it was too late, right? on WeChat, you only have those 2 precious minutes to recall whatever shit you said, right? It's not like WhatsApp that you can, recall messages from like, 4 years ago. But we passed. I think, yeah, we passed. Everyone passed the test. The teacher literally helped us with the answers with the questions we couldn't understand, because it's like, there was like 5,000 words. An exam that was including 5,000 new words, and there were words that I had never seen before. And the teachers, I think they were really disappointed, not in us but in CSC, and how they throw that curveball at the end of like the semester. And I think like only 2 people couldn't pass that time, but eventually they retook the exam and passed it. So later I moved into my university to start my undergrad program, and that is when I started seeing a different kind of teachers, because the young teachers are usually very motivated. I was in a normal university, which means, a teacher that prepares students, right? Okay, fuck it, I'm just gonna say I was in Nanjing Normal University. I'm not gonna say when, but back then we had this master degree students, I think, or undergrad degrees, I don't remember, but they were like, it was the boot camp for, I don't know what's up in China, but like foreigners, the Lawai are usually the boot camp for Chinese teachers, and like, it's like whenever you go to the barbershop in China and they think it's okay to give the Lawai the most unexperienced and the youngest barber out there. It's like as if like, oh man, the Lawai probably doesn't have enough vocabulary to complain about a bad haircut or whatever, or they're just too scared. The most professional and experienced hairdressers, they're just too scared to like cut Lawai's hair and screw it up, so they just send the most unexperienced and naive barber, so they are the ones who screw up. But anyway, man, I'm digressing. I don't know, I guess this is a way for the students to get prepared and train themselves before they find their actual jobs. But there were these young teachers, they were really motivated to teach us, and they would literally pee their pants just to help you. They will stay with you after class, they would have coffee with you, help you, they would give you homework, and then they would stay with you, helping you finish your homework. It was very cute. Then that changed, because later on in my university, there were teachers that had been working on the same job for like 25 years or so. So they were very knowledgeable, but man, they would not go out of their way to help you. Like they had, and I get it. They have families, they have a life, and man, like it's not like they lose their sleep over you not learning how to say to shao qian, but I think that I don't know. I was so used to teachers being super supportive and like following up on your progress in my initial university, and then it was kind of kicking the balls when, oh shit, what? I'm actually have to be responsible for my study progress. What the fuck? And man, it was okay. I ran into amazing teachers, and most of them were amazing. To be honest with you, they were great teachers, very knowledgeable, and they were great educators as well. But man, there's also some dishonorable mentions, and I think that, I remember the first shitty teacher I ran into, and that was our English teacher. Everyone had to take English, and she was just, I don't know, man, like according to some friends, man, this is like teachers that have taught in high schools for too long, they become like super immature. They just like they have to go to the same level as, I don't know, like a mom like scolding a child, so they get too used to this kind of persona, right, that has to scold high schoolers and get angry and all that, because like high schoolers can be really insolent and all that. But anyway, the thing is that this teacher was just I think I've talked about her before. Like, she got fired eventually, but of course, like, none of the other teachers would admit it. Like, they would just say like, oh, she's on a sick leave, or she got sick. Yeah, she got sick right after an entire generation reported her, because she was yelling and she was being a total bully about I don't know, man, like she would say things like, man, you guys are so ungrateful, you know how hard it is for Chinese to go to prestigious universities and all that. And she would say like, you know, you guys are so ungrateful, like kind of like telling us you don't deserve to be here. And finally, like someone reported her, and then like she got sick. Of course, all the other teachers saying like, yeah, she's sick. I said, yeah, not really, man. She got fired on I just guess that the teachers didn't want students knowing that they actually have the power to get them fired, right? But I think it's very simple as a teacher. Just don't be an asshole, man, because you know there were teachers there that were really lazy, and they would really go through the motions and just like do the minimal effort to just like, you know, carry on their classes. But I think that, I don't know, man, like she was like such a bitter person. She would just not enjoy teaching. I don't think so. She just hated it, and I think like she just hated the Lawais being able to study in prestigious universities, which I understand, you know, like it's way easier for foreigners to get into prestigious universities than it is for Chinese. But you know, there's a catch, because although it's so easy for us to get in, graduating is very, very difficult, and it's impossible for many foreigners. You know, I remember that from the 200 students that studied with me in Nanjing. Man, I can assure you that only like 10%, like maybe 20 people. I know of 20 people who actually made it through and graduated. So yeah, man, like I feel like whenever you get an admission letter from a university in China, man, that doesn't mean that they thought of you as, you know, adequate for studies. They're just giving you the benefit of the doubt, and the real admission letter is your graduation certificate, you know, if you make it, right? But I guess like that's not how the teacher see it. Eventually she got fired, and then we got a much nicer English teacher, Jessica. Never forget her. So nice, and it felt like a really warm hug after having to experience that total bitch of a teacher that we had for at least 2 or 3 years. But anyway, that was one of the dishonorable mentions. On the other hand, we had to deal with, you know, these two immature teachers that, I don't know, they were like evil twins or something, man, and they hated each other. They were both from Taipei, I'll never forget, from the same place in Taipei actually, and man, they hated each other. They both had rich husbands in Shanghai, and I remember that they both hated each other and would openly speak about themselves, like not themselves but about each other, to speak badly about each other with the students. And man, this is the thing about the young teachers, man. I feel like they go and teach a class and they want to be friends with the students. You know, they get kind of want to get chummy with students and go have coffee. And man, I even know a teacher who went to Disney with one of his students, and I think like they're trying to relieve what they couldn't live, the kind of like life that they wish they had with their own students. I don't know, man, some Freudian shit, whatever. But anyway, I think that, man, they hated each other, and the reason why they hated each other was because they were exact copy of each other. They were the exact same, and I think that it was just a reminder of how annoying and superficial and they were. And man, like the reason I disliked them was because, man, they were not as knowledgeable as they would pretend to be, and they were assigned by our department to teach us foreigners. And man, you know what, man, something that many students don't understand is that, man, I don't think Chinese are like dying to teach foreigners. It's not like, man, I can't wait to graduate university to go teach like why, man, how to say 我破莫佛的特那了个可以man, no, I don't think there's any maybe there is, but man, I feel like most of the teachers on my major, they were teachers from other backgrounds, you know, that, man, you know what they said, those who can do teach. And man, that was the case for many of the teachers in my department. There were teachers who had some sort of like real life experience in business and all that, and they had to learn how to teach Chinese in one way or another. And I don't know, I am sure that there are many of them who actually like teaching students, man. I mean, I can see why it must be really interesting to meet students from all over the world and teach them how to speak your language. But man, at the same time, I don't think this is like a high paying job. On YouTube, right, I talked about that, how like teacher salaries is is complete shit for many Chinese in China. And I don't know. Well, at the end of the story, I know that they both quit their jobs and whatever. But I don't know why they had to speak badly about each other with their students. I get they were trying to get the validation from the students. I don't know if they're trying to be popular again in university, maybe because they couldn't be popular back in university or whatever, man. But anyway, something that annoyed me about them was the fact that they had to, pretend to be like they so knowledgeable, and they show themselves as super confident, and I don't know, man, like it was just too annoying for me, man. Why didn't you just admit that you don't have all the answers? Why you have to, I don't know, for example, whenever you would ask a question, they'd be like, what, you don't know that? Man, like, for example, I remember I didn't know how to read this character that looks like zh, the sun, right? The zh, but it's not zh, it's yue, that means say, the one that, man, you know which one I'm talking about, I bet, but I didn't know how to read that shit, and the teacher was like, what in the motherfuck, man? How are you even here? And I was like, man, bitch, man, can you just move on? Like, why do you have to make a big deal out of this, man? I don't know, man. And this is what leads me to this other kind of teacher, that the ones that make fun of foreigners. And I remember we had this teacher called, I'm gonna call him the horse teacher, because that's his last name in Chinese. And also he had this stupid smile that I don't know, I always want to punch him in the face, but I never did, thankfully. But man, like, some people have very punchable faces, but man, this guy would literally target every single, not Lao, but every single Westerner, man. And I think, man, especially white people, yeah. And he would make fun of them. He would crack jokes, and he would be like, "你很可爱," man. It was such a condescending behavior, and I think that he could, honestly, he was very knowledgeable. I gotta give him that, but man, he was just, I don't know, he was just so obnoxious, like, and I wouldn't even want to go to his classes because he would always target me. And what's funny, one of my classmates who was also white and a Westerner, she would ask me, Isaac, can you please come to class, because now that you're not coming to class, like, he's targeting me and making fun of me and all that. And I don't know, man, I just feel like, man, like, I don't know, it's kind of I guess, like, some teachers, they just don't know how to be teachers, and they feel very insecure in front of the class, because, man, the reality is that no one would say the word in class, and it was not a lecture. Those were not lectures, by the way. They were just like regular classes. But Asian students, man, they don't say a word, and the only ones who actually speak openly in class are mostly the Westerners, man. We open our mouth, and I guess, like, whenever no one was speaking in class, he would try to provoke us in some way or another by saying comments like, I don't know, how can you afford to study in China if your country's so poor? Or, like, man, he would say really mean comments about people, and I don't know how no one actually reported him, man. And I think it's because, like, he would make jokes, and then everyone would laugh, and I don't know, man, but honestly, I feel like some students, they would just, like, laugh at every single stupid joke that a teacher would make, and I don't know, man, like, I guess this is how they get their validation, and I don't know what makes teachers think that they're, I mean, yeah, they are a figure of authority, but I don't know what makes them think that they can actually go ahead and, like, just say whatever thing, and then, like have people laugh. I don't know, man. I guess that's what they have to resort to when they feel that no one is paying attention, right? So yeah. I also had other kinds of teachers. This is not a dishonorable mention, but during the last semester, I remember that when we were assigned this teacher, well, we had one teacher that was amazing, very knowledgeable. He had the background. He was teaching us international trade. It was really good. But man, all he would do is just, like, draw on the whiteboard, man. He would just draw diagrams and stuff like that. And man, like, students were fascinated, honestly. But man, honestly, man, like, it was not very, you cannot just, like, draw diagrams for 2 hours hours on a board, man. I think that there's also a point in discussing with students and like memorizing terms that might be useful for you in the future. It was not very balanced. There were many teachers that were balanced, and I remember a few that they would actually make sure that the class was balanced. It was them speaking, have the students speak, have presentations, make sure that we had to study for tests and have like some sort of like quiz or exams or mock tests, whatever. Anyway, the whole thing is that the entire thing is a mixed bag. You never know what you're gonna get. It's a box of chocolates. But I think that one teacher that I had, she was. I should talk about this later in a future episode. It was about which is going to be about educational inflation, right? How you see this 27-year-old doctorate students and they have no real life experience whatsoever. And man, that's the case for one of the teachers that we got during the last semester. She was teaching us international trade and study cases. Man, I don't know. She was she knew a lot of theory. She got a doctorate degree from a Japanese university, and she was very, very young. And in class, she was so serious and so nervous at the same time. She would like shake, literally. Her hands were shaking. She was drinking like two bottles of water in class. And I one day had to tell her, like, look, teacher, honestly, it's very obvious to me that you're nervous, and she's gonna tell you that no one in this class knows more than you do. So you might as well just embrace it and, find something like just loosen up a little bit and man, ask for our names, like get to know us, because these are not lectures. And I guess like Chinese teachers, they kind of adopt this they have an idea what a teacher should look like or behave like, and then they just become this caricature of a teacher, right? And I guess it's the same thing for every single profession out there in China. And I guess it's only years of experience that teach you that you can be who you want to be in class, as long as you're being appropriate and as long as you're doing your job right, that you can add your own personality into the mix. But yeah, man, that was it. Fuck 37 minutes. Fuck me, man. Like, man, this is why I should write my episodes instead of just like learning whatever. Anyway, man, I'll figure it out. Let's see, man. Thank you for listening, man. And I'll see you next time. All right, bye.